Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're talking about one of the most fascinating origin stories in American financial history. And trust me, it's way more interesting than you'd think. So picture this. It's May 17th, 1792, New York City. 24 businessmen are standing under a buttonwood tree on Wall Street, and they're about to sign an agreement that will literally change the course of economic history. These guys had no idea they were creating what would become the most powerful financial market in the world. They were just trying to solve a problem. But let me back up a bit, because to understand why this happened, we need to talk about what was going on in America at that time. It's the early 1790s. The United States has only been independent for about a decade. The Revolutionary War is over, but the country is basically broke. The federal government owes millions, and I mean millions for that era, in war debts. States owe money. Soldiers who fought in the war are holding IOUs that might never get paid. It's a financial mess. Enter Alexander Hamilton. Yes, the guy from the musical. He's the first Secretary of the Treasury, and he's got this controversial plan. Hamilton wants the federal government to assume all the state debts and issue new government bonds to pay them off. This is huge because it would establish credit for the young nation and prove that America can honor its financial commitments. Congress eventually passes Hamilton's plan in 1790, and suddenly there are all these new government securities floating around, bonds, promissory notes, things like that. People start buying and selling them, hoping to make a profit. And where there's buying and selling, there's a market. Now, at this time, there's no organized stock exchange in New York. Trading is happening, but it's chaotic. It's taking place in coffee houses, on street corners, at auctions. Merchants and traders are just shouting prices at each other. There are also these people called auctioneers who are acting as middlemen, taking commissions that keep going up and up. The traders are getting frustrated because these commissions are eating into their profits. There's also another problem: trust. When you're doing deals on a street corner with no official records or regulations, how do you know the other person is going to follow through? How do you know they're not going to scam you? The whole system is inefficient and, frankly, kind of sketchy. So these 24 brokers and merchants, they're the key players in this informal market. They decide enough is enough. They need to organize. They need rules. They need to cut out the middlemen and work directly with each other. On May 17th, 1792, they gather outside 68 Wall Street under this large buttonwood tree. Some historians think it was actually a sycamore, but buttonwood is what's stuck in the history books. And right there, they sign what becomes known as the Buttonwood Agreement. The agreement itself is actually pretty simple. It's only 2 sentences long. Seriously, the first sentence says that the signers agree to trade securities only among themselves. The second sentence sets a minimum commission rate of 0.25%. That's it. 24 signatures, 2 sentences, and the foundation of the New York Stock Exchange. Now, let me read you the actual text because it's kind of remarkable in its simplicity. We, the subscribers, brokers for the purchase and sale of public stock, do hereby solemnly promise and pledge ourselves to each other that we will not buy or sell from this day for any person whatsoever any kind of public stock at a less rate than 1/4% commission on the specie value, and that we will give preference to each other in our negotiations. That's it. That's the document that started it all. So what made this agreement so revolutionary? Well, first, it created an exclusive club. By agreeing to trade only among themselves, these brokers were forming a closed market. If you wanted to buy or sell securities in New York, you pretty much had to go through one of these 24 guys. This gave them control and stability. Second, by setting a fixed commission rate, they were preventing a race to the bottom where brokers would undercut each other until nobody made any money. It also meant prices became more transparent and predictable. Third, and maybe most importantly, they were creating trust. These men knew each other. They were agreeing to hold each other accountable. It was the beginning of regulation in American finance, not government regulation, but self-regulation. After the Buttonwood Agreement, these brokers kept meeting and trading. At first, they moved indoors to a coffee house called the Tontine Coffee House, which opened in 1793. They rented out the second floor and made it their official trading room. Can you imagine? The predecessor to the New York Stock Exchange started in a room above a coffee shop. For the next several decades, this organization evolved. In 1817, They formalized everything even more and created the New York Stock and Exchange Board. They wrote a constitution, established official membership, and created more detailed rules about how trading should work. By the mid-1800s, the New York Stock Exchange, as it became known, was the dominant securities market in the United States. It grew alongside American industry. When railroads expanded across the country, railroad stocks traded on the exchange. When oil was discovered, oil company stocks were listed. When manufacturing boomed, those companies went public on Wall Street. The Civil War actually accelerated the growth of the stock market because the government needed to raise money and issued more bonds, which created even more trading activity. By the early 1900s, Wall Street wasn't just a street in New York, it was a symbol of American capitalism itself. The NYSE was the place where fortunes were made and lost. It survived panics, crashes, depressions, and wars. It adapted to new technologies, from the telegraph to the telephone to computers. Today, the New York Stock Exchange is the largest stock exchange in the world by market capitalization. We're talking about trillions of dollars in value. Thousands of companies are listed. Millions of trades happen every day. And it all traces back to that spring day in 1792 when 24 men stood under a tree and signed a two-sentence agreement. What I find most fascinating about this story is how it shows that major institutions don't always start with grand visions or master plans. These guys weren't trying to build an empire. They were just trying to make their daily work easier and more reliable. They wanted fair commissions and trustworthy partners. That's it. But by creating structure where there was chaos, by establishing rules where there were none, they built something that lasted. They proved that trust and organization are the foundations of any functioning market. The Buttonwood Agreement reminds us that sometimes the biggest changes come from simple solutions to everyday problems. 24 men, one tree, two sentences, and the birth of American financial markets. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I do, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe for more financial history content. Drop a comment and let me know what other origin stories you'd like to hear about. I'll see you in the next one.